Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome to the Hawthorn Cottage Craft podcast. I'm Kate. You can find me on Instagram as Kate_Hawthorn Cottage Craft, on Ravelry as a runner bean, and there's a Ravelry group for the podcast called Hawthorn Cottage Craft Podcast. Today is Saturday the 7th of January 2023. This is a knitting mainly podcast, some other crafts thrown in occasionally, crochet, sewing, but it is primarily knitting. If you are a returning viewer, you are incredibly welcome back. It is lovely to have your company again. And if you're a new viewer, you're very welcome here. We did see some new people joining the community during Vlogmas, and it has been really lovely to see you and to get to know you. And I hope you enjoy your time here at the cottage. Today is really all about what I am knitting in January, my knitting plans for this month, my making plans for this month, and some chat about the knit along, crochet along, and the make along that are taking place. Yes, I want to talk about my knitting for January. I started, like many other people, a project on Christmas Eve, and if you watch the Vlogmas series through Christmas, you will know that I chose the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas socks that were created by Danielle George, who really created the phenomenon of the Christmas Eve cast on, or the big knit along that the knitting community now takes part in every year. And Danny is Little Bobbin's Knits. If you don't know that, she occasionally podcasts, used to podcast quite regularly, and she is a knitwear designer, mainly socks, I think. She every year puts out a new pattern for the Christmas Eve cast on, and this year it's a beautiful pattern, but it wasn't my style. But I had really enjoyed knitting the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas socks a few years ago, and I'll insert a photograph of what my original pair looked like. I think it was 2017 I knit them, and I'd knit them in wool and vine yarn that I'd bought at Rhinebeck that year, and I love these socks. So I thought, yeah, I'll knit another pair of those. And before Christmas, or just in the run-up to Christmas, I had purchased some yarn from Birch Grove, which is a Canadian company. It's Birch Grove by Christina, and I'll put her details in the description box. All designs or patterns that I talk about and yarns that I talk about are linked in the description box below. But I had bought her one of her Christmassy winter colours. I'd also purchased one of her beautiful bags. Isn't that really pretty? And the colours I got were Winter Woods. This was a sock set. And there's some really pretty colours in there, very subtle. And it's a superwash merino nylon base. And it came with the mini of Pine, the colour Pine. And this is actually very similar to the colour I knit my original 'Twas the Night Before Christmas socks in. So this is the contrast colour. And I cast on Christmas Eve, but then I set the socks aside basically for the rest of the Christmas season, because I had Christmas socks to finish off. And if you've watched the Vlogmas that was between Christmas and New Year, and I'll link that above, I show you the finished socks there. I had knit the West Yorkshire Spinners gingerbread socks this year. So I'd wanted to finish those and just get things like that off the needles before I started another pair of socks. And yesterday I finished the first one, and I'm delighted with it now. It's straight on to this without being soaked. And somebody asked me why I blocked my socks during Vlogmas, and you really don't need to block socks the way you would with a sweater, but it's vanity, really. One, if you're gifting them they look really pristine and flat and just very finished if you block them. And because I do this and show off my socks or take photographs of them, they definitely show up much prettier in pictures, and you can see the designs maybe more clearly if they're blocked. If you're just knitting socks and putting them straight, intending to put them straight in your feet, never take a photograph of them or anything else, you do not need to block socks, I don't think. But normally I do, and that's why I do it. It's really for presentation. And it would show up better if this was blocked. But you can see just about that there are little pine trees all the way down the leg, and then it goes into just a long kind of tree trunk down the foot. And the pattern has like a right instructions for the right leg and instructions for the left, so that the pattern's on the outside of your leg. But it's a very, very simple lace pattern. Maybe you can see it better there. This colour, my other socks I think showed up the pine trees more clearly because it was a semi-solid, whereas the speckles maybe detract a wee bit from the pattern. But I still love these, and I love the contrast heel. I do the heel flap and gusset when it's all the one colour. And I just followed Danny's pattern for that. I usually use my own, but I stuck to Danny's pattern for this one. So it's slightly different underneath than the way I would normally do it. But I think they look really well. And then the contrast too. I decided to keep the cuff the same colour just to use as much of the yarn as I could. So I'm really, really pleased with this. It's a 64 stitch pattern, and I knit my socks on a 2.5mm. But when I say what needle I use, you really have to go with the needle that gets you the gauge that fits. Many people knit on a 2.25mm. I find for the 64 stitch count, a 2.5mm needle is the correct gauge for me. So I have cast on this morning, just I can find it, the second sock. So I'm in very early stages in the second sock. It's a 1x1 twisted rib. But this knitting with this yarn, it's really like knitting with butter. It's a real pleasure to knit. And I think because of a pattern such as this, the repeat is only, I think it's 10, 11 rows possibly. It's not very, very long, but you always want to get to the end of the repeat. So I feel these socks get knit very quickly. If I'm knitting a plain vanilla sock, it feels as though it takes forever. But just that little bit of interest in it that is very easily memorised. It's very easy to see the pattern when you're knitting it. It makes it fly through because you're wanting to get to the end of the repeat, and then you get to the end of it and you go, have a time to put another one in. So they do work up very, very quickly, and I love this. So certainly within the next week, I'd like to get the second sock of this finished. And I'll wear these, although they were a Christmas Eve cast on, they're just a winter colour. And I'm going to wear these once they're finished and not put them away until Christmas. So that is one of the things I'm working on in January. Just sitting behind me. The second thing I'm working on is a test knit, and I'm doing a test knit for Emma, who is Woolly Mammoth Fibre company, and she is creating a pattern called the Ferny corner shawl, and I'll insert a photograph of that here. And she has asked a group of people to test knit it for her. The pattern she has, as I've shown you, it's in public, so I can show you what I have done. And this is what I have done so far. it's I think a triangular shawl. Knit from the middle here and works its way out and creases out. And then towards the edge there's a band of colour and lace, and then another little bit of the main colour. And this is a really fun, at the moment, as they would call it, a potato chippy pattern to knit. It's easily, I mean, there's increases, but they're basic increases at the moment, just creating the shape. So it's mainly just garter stitch knitting, which means it's really easy to watch the television and knit away and not have to worry. Once I get to the lace, it might be slightly different. But the yarn I'm using for the main colour is John Arbin, and it's his Exmoor sock, which is a 4-ply. It's a 4-ply shawl, and this colour is Hemel. And if you know me or have followed me for a while, I love green, and this is a beautiful shade of green. So that is my main colour. This is an Exmoor Blueface Corriedale Zwart Balls and nylon yarn, and it's really, really pretty. So that's my main colour, and this is and will be my contrast colour. And this is Emma's yarn. I had this in stash. I really wanted to use this, and this is where was my starting point actually for the shawl. I saw this, wanted to use this, and it was trying to get a colour to match. And I had originally thought of a very natural colour, but I thought this wouldn't pop well enough. And I don't know if you can see it. And you can, I think. There's just a pop of green through this. And that is the green. And the light is really poor that I tried to match it with. Better back here. So this is, as I said, Woolly Mammoth fibres. It is her natural sock base. It's Blueface Leicester and Cheviot wool. And the colour was Flump. I really can't remember when I got this. But because it was Emma's pattern, I wanted to use some of her yarn, and this worked well. And I'm really happy with how it's working out. It's just, as I said, garter stitch, the increases at the centre, and this will block out really, really nicely and drapey, because it's knit on a 4, I think that's a 4, could be a 4.5, can't read it properly, millimetre needle, and so it's a US 7, so it's given it quite a lot of air, and it'll drape really nicely once it's blocked, and it'll even out all those stitches. So I'm looking forward to continuing with this. I think the pattern plan it's to be released in February at some point, so I have a little bit of time to get this done, and I put a few rows in every day, and it is working up quite quickly. So those are the projects that I'm actively working on at the moment. I do have another knitting project that I have in mind. I haven't knit a shawl in a long time, and I'm missing knitting a garment. So I have one in mind. I am thinking of knitting the terrazzo slipover. Just check. Yep, the terrazzo slipover by Petite Knit, and again I'll insert a picture of that because I think it should be quite a fast knit. It's an Aran weight yarn project. Now she works at where she's holding a couple of yarns, double, including mohair, so hers is a very soft look. I have quite a stash of Studio Donegal yarn, and I have this one, Donegal Wool Spinning Company by Studio Donegal, and the light is really poor, but it's navy with the tweed flex. There we go. And I think I have just enough to knit the slip over with not having sleeves to do. It should work better, and it's knit on quite a large gauge needle, so hopefully this will knit up very quickly. So I'm fully intending to get this wound up today and maybe get it cast on as well. My one concern is that when I start that, I'll get so absorbed in it that the shawl might slip, but I can't allow it to go into second place because it's test knit, and I am enjoying it, but I'm missing a garment. So I think this will be what I put on today for that. Those are kind of the works in progress. But if you followed Vlogmas and the previous episode of the podcast, which was at the end of November, I'll link it. I mentioned a knit along and a make along in the group. The knit along, and when I say knit along, please know that that encompasses crochet along as well, is for a Lucky Dip. I ran a Lucky Dip KAL a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it. And I think everybody else really enjoyed it because it gave us all an opportunity to dive into stash, find those single skeins that we had and use them up in a fun way. So the premise basically of the Lucky Dip KAL is to go through your stash, find 12 skeins, any weight, doesn't matter, just those single skeins that are in there, and wrap 12 of them up and put them in a bag. I saw someone thought it was a great idea, had seen the wine bottle bags, gift bags. She had spotted those in a charity shop and picked those up, and that's what perfect shape for her skeins of yarn. I had bags like this, and pick out the 12 skeins, put them in, throw them in a basket or a box or set them somewhere, and each month just pull one from it. This year I decided, actually I pulled out, or I actually let my daughter choose 12 skeins of mine, and she put them into bags but also put a month on them. Now I have no clue what's in each month, and it just means that I left the bag for the month. You don't have to do that, you can just randomly pick. I have no clue. The only thing that I know she did is that towards September, October, I think she put in autumnal colours. Beyond that, I have no clue. So I have my 12 bags and I have them in a basket. As you will see, Arch, Fibre. And I really don't know what colours she has chosen or what yarn she has chosen, so it is a real surprise. And every month you pull one out and knit whatever you like, and then post a picture of it on Instagram. And I will also open a group or a thread in the group on Ravelry, because I know some people don't use Instagram and would rather have it in the Ravelry thread. There will be one thread, you can chat on it, you post your pictures in it just for ease. This is a very, very informal, loose rules knit along. And if I've no prizes planned, but that's not to say there won't be some. We'll see as the year progresses what I have and how we can do that. But at the moment, it's just a time to craft together. So make sure on Instagram you do tag them, and I'll put the tag up here. so that we can see them and encourage each other with our projects. My project for January, what came out of this bag, I have in a little bag I got for Christmas. This was one of my Christmas gifts. Free Dobby knit socks bag that is from the Weird Sisters. I link this in the description box. It's a shop on Etsy, and I got the little pouch as well with some stitch markers, Dobby stitch markers. If you all know, he may have fallen over, but Dobby sits, oh, he has fallen over. He sits on the back of my sofa with his sock on, which gives him his freedom. I love Dobby. So it's been housed in this bag, and this is what came out of the January bag, and I was thrilled. So this is a deconstructed fade set from Shirley Bryan Yarn, another Canadian Ottawa company, and this colourway is St Elmo's Fire. So when I'm winding up my yarn for my sweater today, I'm also winding this up, and another pair of socks is definitely going on the needle today. So this is another superwash merino nylon, and I will be knitting this as 2 50-gram skeins, yeah, in this to make the socks. So this is acceptable within the sock bags or the bags. You can knit it whatever you like. It doesn't have to be socks. It's those 100-gram skeins or something like this, or the knit picks. If you have knit picks, most people have 2 balls of it because they're 50 grams each to knit a pair of socks. So that is perfectly acceptable. As I said, the rules are quite loose, but really nothing over 100 grams is what we're saying. A single skein or this type of thing. And it's just to use those ones up. And this will be my first project for the Lucky Dip KAL. And I'm looking forward to getting it going. The other along that we're having is a make along. And at the start I said it was for the Making magazine, which is about to go out of print, and I think they're what's the word? They're starting up with a new look. Saturday morning, brain's not in function. And there'll be no more paper copies of this particular magazine, Making. And originally the make along was to be from the Making magazine, but not everybody has the Making magazine. But I'm sure we all have magazines on our shelves that we have and that we've never used. I have all the Making magazines, and I think 13 or 14 of them, and I'm not sure if I've actually made anything out of any of them, and that's quite an investment to have not actually used. I have looked at them. I have had the Buds, something in Buds sweater on my Blossoms and Buds sweater, I can't remember, from one of the early magazines on my list for a long time, and just never, Branches and Buds, I never got round to knitting it. But I'm determined this year to knit something out of, not all of the magazines obviously, or to create something out of all the magazines, but to use most of them this year. Every month pull out a different project and make it. So in a magazine like Making, there can be knitting, there's sewing, there's a sewing project, there's a knitting, there's a sock pattern, there can be a recipe, sometimes it's a paper craft. Magazines are full of lots of different making ideas, and it's really to, one, use the magazine, and two, inspire some more creativity. I tend to stick to knitting, and sometimes it's nice to be reminded that I can make other things. I looked through for this month the first making magazine, and all the projects I liked in it were knitting, and because I have so much knitting on the go at the moment, I didn't want to choose one of those, so I went to the second magazine, and my project for this month is a sewing one. And if you know me, I do sew, although my sewing machine I think has forgotten who I am and it's sitting under a layer of dust. But I'm going to make these sachets because they're small, they'll be easy to fit in time wise to the rest of the month with all the other things going on. And I have fabric that I want to use for it, so I don't need to go and buy anything. Everything I need I have, and that will be my project for this month. I'll put the tag again for this make along down across the screen so that you can tag any project you make. I think it's the year of making Mal, but I'll put it on the screen. Tag your photographs on Instagram, and again there'll be a thread specifically for this make along in the podcast group on Ravelry. But as I said, I'm going to make this, and I'm going to use these fabrics to make it. I was at the Kawartha Lakes Yarn Festival in Ontario in June, and I picked these up there. They're beautiful. These are hemp and cotton squares, hand dyed with pine cone iron. I think this one has iron in it. And there's an eco print as well. 2 eco prints. And I am going to make some of my little squares with these, and then I'll fill them with, they recommend lavender and rosemary and cedar chips, and I think I'll do the same. I've plenty of lavender and rosemary in the house. Cedar chips I don't have, but we can see what we'll do. And then these will be lovely either for my own project bags, for drawers, for clothes, or as little gifts. But they should make quite a few because they're quite small pouches. So that's my plan for January, is to do my first sewing project for the Making Mal and this for the Lucky Dip KAL. So plenty to keep me going. What are you knitting for January? Do you have big plans? I haven't planned beyond January. Do you have any plans for the year? A lot of people do the grid with 9 projects planned for the year. I'm not doing that because it becomes I'm too OCD for that, and I would feel stuck with it. So I'm not planning beyond January. Have you planned beyond January? What are you planning to do? Put it in the comments below if you have any plans. Tell me what you're doing for the knit along, the make along if you're joining in. I'd love to hear from you. One other thing I want to just kind of tease at this point is that over Vlogmas, the channel went through 10,000 subscribers, which just blew me away. I remember the channel starting, and it started in 2017. I remember thinking, if I get 10, I'll be lucky. 10 people who want to watch me get tongue-tied. But I cannot thank you enough for subscribing to the channel, and I'm in the process of organising a little giveaway which is going to be very special, but it isn't confirmed yet, and I'll leave that to the next episode, but just stay tuned for that. But thank you so much already for just your support and for being here and coming back time and time again. That's really all I have for today. It feels quite quick, and I feel as though I've rattled through everything, so hopefully it was vaguely coherent. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy whatever knitting and making that you're doing, and I shall see you the next time.